24 BC was a period of political crisis. In the beginning of that year, Augustus's acts were ratified by the Senate. They also voted that he should be freed from the laws and was no longer bound by them. Lastly, Marcellus, Augustus's nephew, was elected aedile, and his son-in-law Tiberius was elected quaestor for 23 BC. It could be argued that the Senate voted Augustus to be above the law and ratified his acts so that he could step down without the threat of prosecution. Considering that Caesar had started a civil war because as soon as he stepped down as proconsul, he was going to be prosecuted by his enemies for his illegal Gallic wars, this does seem to have some sense. However, undoubtedly, this in hindsight added to his power, as Cassius Dio reports. Cassius Dio, Roman History, Book 53, Chapter 18. They have been set free from the laws, as the very words in Latin express it. That is, they are exempt from all binding tradition and are not liable to any of the written laws. Thus, by means of these democratic titles, they have vested in themselves all of the authority of the government to such an extent that they actually possess everything that kings possessed except their paltry title. Unsurprisingly, Augustus was starting to run into increasing resistance to his blatant autocracy. The first such instance of political crisis in 24 BC was the trial of Marcus Primus. It must be understood that it was illegal to begin a war against someone without the Senate's permission. Maiestas, treason, was the crime for breaking this rule. Marcus Primus, governor of Macedonia, was accused of making an illegal war on the Odrysiae, a Thracian tribe. First, he threw himself into the proverbial frying pan by saying that he had gotten approval for the war from Augustus, and then threw himself into the fire by saying that Marcellus, Augustus's nephew, had approved the war as well. Primus was brought to trial, and Augustus, without being summoned to the court, but attending anyway, denied that he had instructed Primus to wage the war. Primus's advocate, Licinius Varro Murena, rebuked Augustus and said, "What are you doing here? And who summoned you?" To which Augustus replied, "The res publica." A number of the jury voted to acquit Primus, but he was convicted and found guilty. His supporters liked his quick wits against Murena, and Augustus was given the right to summon the Senate when he wished after this. His detractors thought him a perverter of the laws. Let us analyse the situation and reveal why Augustus was in a bad light because of this affair. Firstly, it is possible that Primus did get permission from Augustus, or Marcellus, or both, for his war against the Thracians. This was illegal because Primus was proconsul of Macedonia, which was a public province, and therefore outside of the jurisdiction of Augustus. He had no business giving governors outside of his province orders. That was illegal and could see Augustus put to trial. If nothing else, it would give Augustus great odium for such an unlawful act. Thus, Augustus dropped Primus like a ton of bricks and did his best to get Primus convicted. This further put Augustus in a bad light because it was illegal to give evidence without being invited to the trial, just as today a person cannot walk into a trial and give evidence. Hence why Murena rebuked him. Augustus was interrupting a trial and using his influence to affect its outcome. His reply, the res publica, makes it sound as if he was the state, which is pretty monarchic. The jury clearly showed their dissatisfaction by defying the clear indication of Augustus, and a few voted to acquit Primus. Had they succeeded in getting him found not guilty, it would mean that Primus had got permission from Augustus for his war, meaning Augustus was in the wrong. Fortunately for Augustus, Primus was convicted, but Augustus had broken the law to do so. The trial, according to Cassius Dio, is said to have inspired the succeeding Caepio Conspiracy. Fannius Caepio led a conspiracy to murder Augustus later in 24 BC. Lucius Varro Murena, the brother of Licinius Varro Murena, was a chief conspirator. However, apart from this conspiracy, he is said to have been a good, law-abiding Roman senator. These conspirators seem to have mostly come from the senatorial classes and the equites, as Caepio and Murena were from distinguished families. Murena's sister was even married to Maecenas, Augustus's right-hand man. Augustus fell out with Maecenas because he told his wife Terentia, Murena's sister, that her brother's conspiracy had been discovered. After this plot was discovered by Castricius, one of Augustus's friends, the conspirators soon came to trial. His prosecutor was his own son-in-law Tiberius, who was quaestor for that year. However, the conspirators did not turn up. Augustus conducted the trial anyway. Even so, some jurors voted to acquit the conspirators. This was most likely a protest at Augustus rather than for the conspirators, since it was illegal to convict someone that was absent from their trial. Shortly after the trial, the conspirators were found and killed. Augustus followed this up by making a law that made judicial votes for absent defendants public rather than secret, but they had to be a unanimous vote for a guilty conviction. Perhaps to show some impartiality, Augustus allowed Caepio's father to punish the slave that had not helped his son and rewarded the one that did. However, Augustus gained odium for allowing sacrifices to be voted and offered for his victory over the conspiracy. He was celebrating the death of Roman citizens. If nothing else, the Caepio Conspiracy shows that the senatorial aristocracy was at breaking point, and Augustus's blatant control of the state could not continue. Then, soon after the Caepio Conspiracy, Augustus fell ill and nearly died. I have been your host, Daniel Maynard. Please do like, subscribe and share this video, and this has been Eastern Roman History.